The other side of white supremacy in the discussion that I think really needs to be happening, especially amongst white people, is Black power.
How does one human treat another human being like that? Don't you get it? It's not about race at all. It's not about, it's one human being treating another human being.
This moment, it is about police brutality. It's about Black people, and it's about letting whatever energy can be behind this moment to move reform forward in those areas.
When we argue, it seems like the common thread is that we are arguing because we kind of assume that the person we're arguing against knows everything that we know.
Hi, I'm Kara Cruikshank. Welcome to Essential Stories, an independent grassroots docuseries and live roundtable discussions that give voice to people on the front lines of our world's most pressing social issues.
Thank you if you're joining us for this important conversation. I'm Kara Cruikshank, and I am the host of Essential Stories. And this is our third of these conversations on this topic. So we will continue covering many different aspects and angles and points related to politics, white supremacy, and cultural ecology. Still relevant to keep talking about it. In this conversation, I'll quickly go over the format, which is that we will start with a performance by the artist who's joining us today, Clash, from Los Angeles, singer, songwriter, and rapper. So he'll be performing an original piece and sharing his lyrics as we listen. After Clash performs, panelists will, that worked, Alfred. After Clash performs, each panelist will have a 3-minute intro to the topic. And again, the topic today is politics, white supremacy, and cult psychology. And that covers a hell of a lot of territory. That general topic, we are intentionally sticking with that because there is so much to talk about. So, some of the sub-themes and topics under that title are the Black Lives Matter protests, which are not only national now, but global. We'll be discussing today's political landscape, the two-party election system, the upcoming presidential election, toxic masculinity, the class war, alt-right rhetoric, liberal white rhetoric, the radicalization of white conservatives, and anything else that feels relevant to talk to right now in that spectrum. So with that, I would like to introduce once again the artist Clash from Los Angeles. Please unmute yourself, and we're excited to hear from you. So I like to start each one of these conversations with a live performance because I feel very strongly that helps create the space for a topic to go much deeper and for all of us to get more centered into what needs to be spoken about. So thanks for being here, Clash.
Of course. Hey, Kara, and shout out to the panel. How are y'all doing? I am Clash. I'm from Long Beach. I'm 20 years old. I'm an artist, and I use my words to incite change. This is an amazing conversation and panel that we're having today, and I'm blessed to be a part of it. And I hope you guys enjoy the piece. And I have the lyrics to be presented as I perform, so enjoy. All right. So this song is called This Road. It's a song about the different feelings that I feel like the youth are going through, at least people in my age range, from younger to like about 30 years old. Not all of us are angry, but we do have anger, and we do have a lot of fear, and a lot of times where we're alone and left to figure out things on our own right now. And this is how I'm figuring out things. So here's the song, This Road. On this road, oh, Clash, by the way. Listen, Clash. On this road, ain't no carry on, I gotta find my way, cause when it's cold, ain't no Marriott, I gotta find a place by my loan. Shit gets scary, I just gotta keep my faith. I know this space from the taste, I'ma get it every day. Took a lick and I buried this feeling, is getting scary. Emotional, no, it buries the land of ocean, it buries the deep. Core is blood in the streets, boy, they barely could eat. Lord, what we supposed to be? Lord, get through the deceit. Lord, then I through the speak. Cause then I through the teach. Chose what they supposed to teach. Chose what happened to me. Lord, they worse than a preacher. They don't wanna see us. They don't wanna see us. Stony Road, ain't no carry on, I gotta find my way, cause when it's cold, ain't no Marriott, I gotta find a place, I'm by my loan, shit gets scary, I just gotta keep my faith, I know this space, from the taste, I'm gonna get it every day, know that I've been with you, in your heart, and I can't explain this shit, I can't stop. Addicted to hard ways, addicted to heartbreak. I can't let you stop me, I won't let you top me. I go back to fly, can't let you and your mom pick. I can't let you stop me, I won't let you top me. Sometimes it's better die, yeah. Gone through a better life. Sometimes it's better life. Alive. This steps no going on and you gotta get them last skins. Perpetrating players, but they pussy pimping past tense. Paperback pushing, thought a nigga bought him some lasting. Soaring in glory, wake up early, think the fantastic. I lasted another night. I just might change the world, get drunk and crunk to funk another night. This is a lonely road and yes, it's cold. I know it's gonna be right. Take your chance, go roll the dice. So roll with mic and strobing lights. You tell your truth, the old trite. This for all them dudes before you. Funny how shit came to light. Screw was looser to the juice and bruise they never knew. Fuck what they gon' do to you. That shit ain't nothing new to you. Get in their head like you do, go and move that shit like Rubies do. Thank you, everybody. That's This Road by me. Listen, Clash.
Thank you, Clash. Thanks for sharing that. This is a tricky medium for both the audio and the voice. So thanks for pulling that off. Appreciate it. And thanks for sharing your lyrics also. So feel free to stick around. And if you want to join in at any point in the conversation, you're welcome. So to kick off today's 3-minute intro, Darwin, will you begin for us?
Sure.
Don't forget to
Thank you.
unmute.
Hi, Darwin Fishman, and I'm a professor here in San Diego at San Diego State University and UC San Diego in sociology and African American studies and criminology. And I'm really glad to be here. Do a lot of community work with the Racial Justice Coalition, and we've had an extraordinary victory here with banning the chokehold in San Diego City and then the County of San Diego. After 3 years of fighting with all kinds of government officials about the chokehold, we've finally succeeded. So it's been bittersweet for us, and I'm really happy to be here and really happy to continue this work.
Thanks. And in addition to an intro to you, give us an intro to what you would like to speak on within the topic today: politics, white supremacy, and cult psychology from your angle.
Like the part about white supremacy and how to dismantle it piece by piece, and I think that we can do it, and I think that is not as overwhelming as people think. And I think that especially the last week, 2 weeks have really shown us some concrete examples about how we can work together and make significant changes.
Thanks. One thing I do want to invite from the panel today is to speak on, in particular, we have so many movements at this point that are so important. We have Standing Rock and Indigenous people's rights. We have the Women's March and Me Too and Time's Up. We have Black Lives Matters. We have the LGBTQ communities' rights. We have Latino rights. We have disabled rights, disabled people's rights. We have so many people who need attention, so many communities who are getting the shorter end of the stick. And it's very overwhelming often for many of us to try to know what's the priority and where to focus. And it's so easy to get invested in one movement and become tunnel visioned and forget what we have in common with all the other movements, and how in one way or another, many of us are in the same boat together. And there's so much value in seeing each other and unifying in those movements. And I think that often is getting lost in the weeds. And so, anything that anyone today can speak to on how we sort of see the bigger picture together as many movements coming together as one, I would really appreciate that. So with that said, Jason, do you want to jump in?
And have started my political journey as with the 2016. I didn't start then, but that was a big jump into the Democratic Party in 2016 with Bernie's candidacy. And now here we are. I mean, the thing of the moment is really, police brutality. And we were marching yesterday and we were marching the day before with that. And that's sort of what's mainly up right now. And speaking to the point that you made right now, I actually liked how I saw people sort of take a step back from what might be described as appropriating the limelight around, police violence against Black people, and, taking it, people jumping into this fight and saying, oh, this is about capitalism. This is about, whatever my agenda is. Let me get in front here. Let me do what I want to do. And I think there was some pushback against that here. And people really took a back seat and let this, be what it is about, and not be something that people just glommed on and tried to appropriate the limelight of the moment for their own agenda. So I do like the intersectionality of these different causes, but I think specifically at this moment, it is, it is about police brutality. It's about Black people, and it's about letting whatever energy can be behind this moment to move reform forward in those areas be what it is, and that we all take a back seat to, that voice of the Black experience.
Thank you.
Sure.
So just to backtrack a little bit, I should have introduced Darwin and Jason before they spoke. Darwin is a lecturer for the Sociology and African Studies Department at UC San Diego, which he mentioned, and the Department of Sociology at San Diego State University, and he's also the co-founder of the Racial Justice Coalition, as well as sitting on a number of different boards around racial justice. And Jason Ali Allen, who just spoke, is an activist and also endorsement task force chair at Multnomah County Democrats in Portland, Oregon, among other things, no doubt. So next, I'd like to invite dancer, choreographer, and artistic director of Koku Lotus Dance in Denver, Alfred Smith.
You hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks again, Kara, for initiating these panel discussions. It felt like these past 2 weeks have been really overwhelming, trying to put out one fire and then 20 more come up, and then I'm trying to do those. But this is a great thing we've got going here to kind of consolidate and bring different voices. And again, like Kara said, I am dancer choreographer. I started my own dance company, Koku Lotus Dance. And basically my dancing and choreography is kind of reflective of real life things that I believe in the diversity of life that we all exist in. And so therefore it's the diversity of movement. And even though that ballet and contemporary ballet and African house are my favorites, I've always combined other dance genres that I have trained in. And my works are primarily devoted to exploring the human condition. And I'm really glad this is an hour and a half discussion. So you're really going to have to adhere to the 3-minute rule when it comes to me. Just to give you a little background of my history. One, I'm a practicing Buddhist. It has been hugely instrumental in me growing spiritually, strengthening myself, and then hopefully being of value and impact to my community. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah, all throughout beyond my college years. So that culture and that environment and the frequency is ingrained into me. And this isn't about me, but I just want to give this brief history that I've definitely experienced my form of racism, anywhere from being called a nigger at times, having eggs thrown in my scrotum, being body slammed by police because I fit the description when someone else called and there was a black kid with a black hat. And this was in my own neighborhood. But however, with that being said, I've definitely experienced my form of racism, but I've also experienced, I don't know how you want to define it, but I was never accepted in my Black community. So I definitely had no place either in the white community or the Black community per se. And so that was a torment and a torture. But since then, it's been a benefit. It's been a great value and a gift for myself that in my unique experience, I know how to give off a vibe or a frequency. That's basically my pretty much my privilege in dealing with police for the most part. And I know how to play in the sandbox of the white community, obviously, because most of my friends and my best friends are white. And I know how to play in the sandbox of other different cultures. So I have no trauma, if you will, for my past racial experiences, but this right now is my heart is bleeding for humanity. And there are a couple things that I keep coming back to, and that is symbolism, education, language, and humanism. I won't go into those. I'm sure we'll have time later for me to get into those, but this is great because what I've been learning and dialoguing with people online is I've been learning a lot about myself day to day, actually from hour to hour. And other people have been learning a lot about me. I've been learning about how to navigate my rage, let off my rage. But then as I'm speaking to people and realizing that when we argue, it seems like the common thread is that we're arguing because we kind of assume that the person we're arguing against knows everything that we know. And for me, because of my experience, and for me dialoguing with my conservative friends and very sweet, sincere conservative friends, when I would share things, their jaws would drop. And so I think as we get into this discussion a little bit more, it's really important to get into the education, because also I've discovered that education the lack of education or the cherry picking of education or the G-rated editing of education has really harmed us. And so I'm an individual who kind of exists and just brings my presence from the heart of the human experience. I'm very raw. But however, there's the intellectual, there's the other educators, there's the, hopefully we can get into language and rhetoric aspect of things. But when we talk, like you laid out, Kara, with LGBTQ, Native American, so forth and so forth, women's rights. Yes, I've been concerned about this also because right now, this is an opportunity for us all to jump on while we're hot and passionate. But eventually, something's going to kind of subside a little bit. But no, we have to keep on getting to the roots of things and then keep on navigating and dialoguing. This is very important and essential. So yeah, I think I'll leave it there because most everybody who knows me, who might be speaking or watching, knows that I can just go on and on and on. So, but there's a lot more to jump into. But I just want to say this thing real quickly. We have to get past symbolism. And when I say symbolism, symbolism can be anything from my particular practice in Buddhism, where I chant to a gohonzo, which is a scroll. Symbolism can be a Bible. Symbolism can be God. Symbolism can be the Quran. Memes, platitudes, quotes, the flag. It's just everything around us. And I strongly feel that's the consistent thread, that symbolism is getting in the way of us to really exploring, pushing through, and diving deep down into our core of humanity. Because ultimately, symbolism didn't come out of thin air. Symbolism was developed out of our humanity. We created symbolism because of our experiences. And now I feel like we're being lackadaisical in just throwing symbolism out there as expression, when not everyone shares the same definition of whatever symbolism is, nor the same intensity of symbolism.
Thank you. Thanks, that's a great start. So next, I would like to invite Elizabeth Smith, who is a Navy veteran and a healthcare worker, and also an artist as an actor and ballroom dancer in Brooklyn. Are you based in Brooklyn now, Elizabeth?
No, I live in Manhattan right now.
From Brooklyn, lives in Manhattan.
It's more convenient to get around, get things done. Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and thank you, Kara, for inviting me, and thank everyone who gave me questions and ideas and mindsets as to what to bring up today, as to make my decision to what to talk about. And among all the questions that I did get, I think what the gentleman just spoke is the one that impressed me the most. I mean, there were questions about why are Blacks always shown up in media being worse than whites who are doing the same thing? Why is a Black woman, when she talks and speaks about something strongly, considered angry, but a white woman is considered passionate? Those kinds of questions. I mean, there were several questions I did have to go, and I finally decided that I wanted to go into the fact that America's fabric is woven on inequality between the races. Okay, we know that. And how are we going to get rid of that stain? Because it's integral in the fabric of it. We've soaked it, we've scrubbed it, and it's still there. So if we make a hole because we scrubbed it and soaked it so long and so hard, how are we going to repair that hole? You know, how are we going to fix it? And that being said, there are people that feel that this protest, all they see it is as riots and criminality as far as looting, and they see all the detractions, and they have comments about that. You know, they're willing to say something about their inconveniences and, you know, what it's done and how it appears to them, but they won't talk about why. They won't talk about why are people out there worldwide protesting? What is wrong? What is the question? And these are people who don't feel that they're racist. Not at all. They don't feel, I'm not a racist. You know, but I don't see why, these crazies have to, behave in this manner, but because they don't understand, they don't have any kind of cognizance of the problem, because really they mind their own business. They're good people. They don't have anything. These people aren't in their circle really, so they don't want to be involved, but they're good people. They're good people. They're not racist. They wouldn't hurt anybody, but they're on the fence. They're not gonna stand for anything because they just want to go about their lives. But then how can you have one person in a household who will be out there on the front lines protesting and standing, and others in the same household say, why? What are you doing? It's none of your business. Excuse me. Why do you want to be involved? And that is my question. How does that happen? what was missed? Why is one person in that class or in that classroom, in that household get it, and the others don't get it? They're not bad people. They don't consider themselves racist, and they're not racist. They just don't understand, and they don't want to understand because I guess they really don't care. They're just too busy getting on with their lives. And as long as you don't bother me and I don't bother you over there and I'm over here, there's no reason for me to extend myself in any way. But I'm a good person. I'm a good person. I would never hurt anyone. I would never say anything, but I'm not going to stand for anything either. I just want to go, stay on the fence and walk down the middle. I feel that the criminality things that are happening and like you say, there are other issues, indigenous people, LGBTQ, those are distractions. Those are distractions. Yes, there are all issues that have to be addressed. No doubt about that. But that is not the reason that people are out worldwide protesting. Police brutality. Where is your humanity? As the young man just spoke, I get him. Absolutely. We need to get rid of this extemporaneous stuff and the distractions and get down to how does one human treat another human being like that? Don't you get it? It's not about race at all. It's not about, it's one human being treating another human being. Simple, but why didn't you get it? What did you miss? And that is really my question for today, and it delves into what you were saying about these other issues, and definitely they have to be addressed, and definitely they have merit, but not in any way. Let's get away from the fact, why are we here? Why are these people on the streets worldwide? Not just in New York and my little neighborhood, worldwide. Why are they doing this? There's something bigger and more important and heavier at work here. And I think that is what has to be brought out and say, look, folks, this is what it is. Right in your face, give me an answer. Tell me something. Let's talk about this. It's about being, you're a nice guy and you're not a racist. But where is your humanity, as he said? Because I think at the bottom line, at the end of the day, that's really comes to. You don't treat another human being in a certain manner. You just don't. I've been reading lately, I'm in healthcare, and there was an article I read that said, it was talking about the trauma in childhood that can affect your health later in life. This has been investigated, this has been documented, then if you know that, and then that's understood, then how can you do this? Why are young children being faced with guns in their faces? And that's a picture. I'm like, how could one adult hold a gun on a child? That child is traumatized for life. Traumatized for life. That's never going to come off. But what in you would let you do that? You wouldn't do that to your child or your neighbor. What would make, where did you lose it? When you step outside your door and you put on a uniform, you're somebody else. There's no integral goodness in you that says that's a human being. You treat a dog better. Hello? So, that I think is where the problem might be to be investigated, because the fabric of America is woven with this inequality. It always has been. It's not new. We're saying the same thing over and over and over. Well, you know what? Look, burn your dress and start over. And it looks like with this thing being worldwide, that's what's happening, because it's worldwide. So there's something core there that they're getting that certain people aren't getting. My question is, why aren't you getting it? You're a nice guy. You're decent.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
Of course.
Glad to have your voice here. I want to introduce Amanda Rain, who is rhetorician. Did I say it right?
Rhetorician.
Yeah. And Amanda is also the founder of something called Speaking the Unspeakable, which is a facilitation method, right?
It's all about effective communication. So it definitely gets into all the rhetoric that Alfred was talking about. So
Yeah, and in Portland, Oregon.
Yeah. Thank you, Cara. Thank you for including me today. I feel called from what you spoke to offer a land acknowledgement and just honor the native peoples of the land that I reside on and walk, the Multnomah, Clackamas, Chinook, the Tualatin, Molalla peoples that have been here on this land here in Oregon, and all the native peoples across the country whose land we are on, unceded territory. I just want to offer that acknowledgement as I begin today. And I want to start with a piece of just speaking to, like, even as the brutality and injustice is raging on, that there's reason to hope. And that hope to me feels tenuous, feels very tenuous, and it feels unfounded in some ways. Depending on where you look is what you will see as to whether there's reason to hope or no reason to hope. And I think Darwin hit on the reason to hope is that the changes that are happening on the local level in the cities and the counties and the states, and there is this galvanization that is just, it feels louder and bigger than I've felt it in any of the iterations that I've personally lived through. And you know, these iterations, I just want to honor, have been going on for long before I even existed. And so this is a long struggle. And so for all of us who are new, especially all of us white people who are new to this, it's really important for us to come humble and to listen and to come with respect as we're trying to figure ourselves out and how we fit within this. That's really critical, because this has been happening for a long time. And you know, I worked in drug policy reform for 10 years, so I worked against the nation's failed drug laws. And a lot of that showed up as cannabis policy reform. And when I first started my activism in Michigan, where I'm from, just outside Detroit, you know, I was being an activist and people were like, "You're crazy. It's never going to happen. We're never going to change our marijuana laws." And now you look at it, this is 20 years later, the whole country's turning green. So what I know is that federal change right now is not likely, right? It's just not likely. And on a federal level, we're just now, after all the, you know, decades of work for drug law reform, starting to see more traction on a federal level, but we're still not there. So I just want to say, like, let's not get discouraged and disheartened because we're not going to get that far on a federal level. Where our voices have the most power is on the local city and county level and within our states. And I have heard more support from leaders on the city, county, state levels across the country than I have in the past for reforming police law, like the police enforcement and racial justice. There's so much traction. And, you know, the way of change is it's usually gradual. And I think that gets down to how our brains literally work. Our brains like things to be digestible, if you will, moderate, like to be able to handle, the nervous system likes to be able to handle things. But when big things like this happen, it is a catalyst for change. And it is a moment where we can make bigger change than we could if we were going step by step in that gradual kind of way. So that's one thing I want to offer. And then the other thing I want to offer is kind of, you know, I know a lot of discussion is around white supremacy right now, and it's super crucial. And I know a lot of white people are struggling with it, especially white people who are new to this conversation. And it's kind of, it feels like this nebulous kind of thing for people who are new to it. And so just a real plainly spoken way of breaking it down is that white supremacy is the assumption of being better than other people. And that's what white identity is largely founded on, is being better than other people. That needs to change. Like, it's just not real. It's just not real. On a science level, it's not real. On any level, it's not real. We're just human like everyone else. And so we need to get over ourselves, just to speak it plainly. The other side of white supremacy in the discussion that I think really needs to be happening, especially amongst white people, is Black power. You know, Black folks talk about Black power to each other, but we white folks can't really hear it because we feel threatened, we take it personal, we get defensive. And so it's not something that we're talking about as white people, right? And I want to be clear that it's not for us to like come in and be a savior or rescue people. It's not about us lifting Black people up. It's about us getting out of the way, right? That's what we need to do, is get out of the way so people can claim their power. You know, there's a great illustrated article by The Atlantic on Greenwood, which was the neighborhood outside of Tulsa, Oklahoma, that white folks burned down because it was completely self-sufficient. Completely, it didn't need any white people. It was considered the Black Wall Street, and white folks came and burned it down. And this is what happens when white people are confronted with the fact that we are not all that. We are not supreme. And that we need to step out of the way of Black power. And so I think that we need to have a reckoning inside of ourselves to be able to have these tough conversations of what is it inside of me, like me personally, individually, that is so confronted by a Black person in their power? Why is it then that there's overt and covert racism and suppression of Black power? And how do I play into that? And how can I get out of the way of Black power?
Like, share, and subscribe so that we can make sure that these essential stories are heard by more people.